What made you realize you're old? The first time the barber asked if I wanted my eyebrows trimmed. First time this happened to me, the woman, a friend of my wife's, didn't even ask. It was so quick and in two completely fluid motions that it didn't dawn on me until later what she'd done, as well as the age implications. But I did sit there and think, guess that makes me old. Quote, your wife totally put her up to that. Whenever I have to enter my birth date in a drop-down menu, you see me scrolling, I'm hating somebody trolling, trying to tell me that I'm past age 30. That music's too loud. Viggo Mortensen is now older than Ian McKellen was when he played Gandalf in Fellowship. Holy shit. I am only now starting to realize how long ago the Lord of the Rings movies were made. And I was not a kid when they were made either. I was actually a new homeowner by then. Asked a young relative what music she was into, thinking I would be able to impress her with all I know about the cool bands. She listed quite a few and I had never heard of a single one, instantly humbled. I was reading Rolling Stone at the doctor's office and realized I hardly knew any of the bands on the Billboard #1 singles list. 90s music to my kids is like what 60s music was to me. I almost fell over when a local radio station called songs from the 80s the golden oldies. No, the golden oldies are the 50s, 60s, 80s, 90s, and now, hits different when it no longer means 2000 to 2010. What did they replace the now with these days? The aughts. Everything seems to be an act of letting go. I'm about to turn 31 in the past year has just felt like, oh, so I'm going to be feeling this for the rest of my life. Everything ending. At 44 I don't feel old, but when I'm going to do something nowadays I think about it if I could get hurt. I'm 45. My mother's backyard has a 275-foot hill in the back. As kids we would sled down it, standing up, backwards, on someone's shoulders, at high speeds, you name it. We would end up smashing into the side of the house, laughing. I took my 7-year nephew up the same hill to sled and my first thought was, oh my god, this is terrifying. I could really get hurt. I had to crawl back on all fours to get down. Doing nothing became my favorite thing to do on the weekend. This is a common conversation with my husband and I. Do we have to do anything this weekend? I don't think so. Oh thank God. We always end up doing some responsible shit anyway. I recently saw a Reddit post about things that were popular 25 years ago and I thought about the 80s until I saw a comment that pointed out that we are talking about 1998. I also then realized that I am older than 25. I also recently used the phrase, 20 years ago, when I was talking to a friend. That hit different. Born in 83. The 60s seems like a crazy long time before my time. But 1969 was 14 years before I was born. That's like 2009 till now. The song 1979 by Smashing Pumpkins is closer to the year 1979 than it is to our current time, and not inconsiderably so. Released in 1995. Music that I listened to as a kid being played on the oldies radio station. When I heard 50 Cent's in Da Club jamming on the oldie station I just about fell out of my chair and broke my hip. I had a rental car that only tuned into one radio station, with no Bluetooth. The station it tuned into was a hip-hop one that was playing classics from the early 2000s. The hosts were talking about how these songs were released before they were born. That one hurt. When celebrities would come on late-night shows and they looked so much older, then I would think, I guess I do too. Or that you know all the celebrities that die. I remember celebrity deaths to me for years were just always random people that might as well have been from ancient Rome for how well I knew of them and how old they were. Now every celebrity death is like, what? She died? But she was just in that movie. But then you remember that for you, just in that movie, was a movie 30 years or more ago sometimes. You know what's a totally not fun game to play with your younger coworkers? Asking them what cartoons they grew up watching. Asking them where they were on 9/11 is also a good one. Both parents have died and their siblings are also gone. The big one there is when one of your contemporaries, people you grew up with, old school mates, relatives in your generation, etc., dies, and it's really sad, but not a horrific tragedy of someone being taken too early. My grandfather lived to be very old, and he got used to that, for better or worse, so that sometimes he'd say things that were kind of shocking, but routine for him, like, I used to have a lot of friends. They're all dead now. Quote, my grandpa, 93, says stuff like this all the time. He talks about how everyone he knows is now dead and he's just waiting for his turn. It's so damn sad. When my mom moved into my mirror, Mirror, mirror on the wall, I've become my mother after all, ha ha. Mic check, knee light turned on. Get that looked at before it becomes a check lower back light. What model do you all have? The lower back light was the first one to come on. I've brought it in a few times but the light keeps coming back on. I was browsing a thrift store a few years ago. An RCA wooden console TV caught my eye because we had an identical one growing up, so I checked it out for fun, read the back of it and everything. A while later, as I was standing in line beside the TVs, a kid behind me points to the wooden console one and goes, "Mom, look at that ancient TV. It was made the same year I was born." My everyday routine. Come home from work, watch Wheel of Fortune, look at the newspaper and sit outside, weather permitting, to watch the birds and squirrels. If that doesn't mean I am old, then nothing does. When I gave dating sites a try and found that the people my age were old looking. One of my favorite lines from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is when Frank goes on a date with an old high school girlfriend. After only a few minutes into the date, he tells her it will never work because she's too old. She counters, "Frank, I'm 2 years younger than you." Frank, "Exactly. Hey, you're talking about your kids and shit." When I started mixing cornflakes with Frosted Flakes because Frosted Flakes alone was too fucking sweet. 7-year-old me would be shocked at old me. Spent my 30th birthday itching to go home and take my new cordless vacuum cleaner for a spin. Reminds me of when I was at a store and thought to myself, no, I shouldn't buy that video game, I've already treated myself to a leaf blower today. Quote. When the supermarket started playing the music I listened to in high school. Is that Smash Mouth I hear? When 30 seems like, just a kid. They still have all their hair color. Definitely kids. When I discovered my sciatic nerve. When all of my fellow welding apprentices at work started calling me their shop mom. Hello shop mom. I'm work dad. One of kids stopped herself mid-sentence when she was referring to me as elderly. I'm not even 40 yet. I threatened to date her mom and ground her. Getting annoyed when they rearrange the grocery store. Me, at 28, am I old? A bunch of things lol. Bent down to pick up my 20 pounds pup and threw my back out. Seeing athletes get drafted into the NFL that were born after 2000. Also watching guys I saw get drafted now retiring. Wanting peace and quiet instead of parties. Getting excited about grocery or furniture shopping. Being older than baseball players. Wait a minute. Let me get my glasses and put the main light on to read this properly. I was watching Dairy Girls and thinking, finally, they cast actual teenagers in a show about teenagers. They were all over 25 and one of them was 31. I haven't met anyone in real life that knows about this show. Dairy Girls is hilarious. To be fair, they do look like teenagers. The styling and costuming is really on point. Ear hair. Nasal hair. My hair has been thinning since my late 20s, but what really killed it is the 4 little hairs that still stick out my forehead where my hairline used to be. Added that to my ears, nose, and eyebrow trimming routine. I hit 49 years of age and my body decided at that point that I'm old. Every bad decision I made regarding my health came back to bite me. When kids referred to the 90s at the late 1900s. Don't want to confuse people with the good old 1890s kids. I use Urban Dictionary. 2 words. Gray pubes. My balls are distinguished, thank you very much. Salt and pepper.